What is up, guys? It's your boy Zonia here with another Honkai Star Rail video. So this is going to be a really important video. So why is that? Because next week we get Acheron rerun. This is a really important rerun for a lot of reasons, and we have to talk about this because I feel like people are going to make mistakes when it comes to Acheron and her rerun. In terms mainly of how do you approach pulling for Acheron, right? For this rerun. Especially when Sunday and Fugue come out next patch. Like, is this a trap? No. Who knows? But the thing is, Acheron was the headliner unit for the anniversary. And she broke the bank. Highest selling character in the game. And no banner has come close to her numbers afterwards. So, they knew what they were doing. She's right in May. She's right in May. They knew people were going to pull on her. And E6 her. And she's undoubtedly one of the strongest characters in the game. In my opinion, the strongest raw DPS character in the game. Uncontested. Even more so after we got Jiaochu, who is her biggest buff. Because it's no doubt she kind of needed it, since they called themselves balancing her out by balancing her out through the way her ult generation works. Since debuffs give her stacks. It was at the time a very powerful ability, but as the game state continued to evolve, we did see the inherent flaw of this ability start to come out. No, it's a matter of pacing, because Acheron can gain a lot of debuffs during the party turn, a lot of stacks during the party turn. She doesn't really gain much during enemy turns, and that's how they sort of balance her out. And you saw people doing stuff like running universal market trend on preservation characters just so Acheron could get stacks on enemy turns, which honestly I felt was just rather unnecessary. And that strat kind of hurts the team composition, especially for characters who don't want that light cone. Just for the sake of Acheron getting stacks, Jiaochu was the answer to that. So with that, Acheron remains uncontested. I have consistently wiped this game with her at E6 and her light cone at S5. Like, I was one of the people who wailed really hard for her. I mean, I did it because it's right in me. I don't wail that hard for characters like that in games. The only other character I really did that for was Alicia when she got her Hersher form in Honkai Impact. But like, that was years ago. So just know that this was a special character in my opinion. With that being said, we have to talk about pulling her. Is she worth, if she's worth pulling on the rerun, and what value does she give even in the current game state where we have all this break focus stuff going on and Face Shao with her busted follow-up attack potency, right? Like, how does she stand up? She's still a top DPS. And like I said, like, with the proper team, she remains uncontested. And even with the more dupes you have in her, the better that potency becomes. at E6 there's just she just runs away with it. Like the only other character at E6 who would just outright run away with it is who would run away with her is Fei Xiao. So there are accounts without Acheron. There's accounts with Acheron. There's accounts with E2 Acheron. There's accounts with E6 Acheron. I feel like those are the 4 types of players that we should sort of outline. Because honestly, E1 is whatever. E4 is, I'm not going to say completely say it's whatever, but we don't really care much about E4. And E6 is just an icing on the cake. With that being said, if you don't have Acheron, there's incentive to pull her. Even with the clause that she needs 2 nihility characters outside of herself to grant this damage boost here. Honestly, you can get away with running 1. You can get away with running 1 because 115 is still really powerful boost, right? And you have a number of options in terms of characters to run with her. Zhao Chu being the best character to run on her team, like bar none. There's no equal. Black Swan is really good to run. Gwyneth is really good to run. Silver Wolf and Welt are especially good to run. People don't really talk about Welt so much these days. I mean, admittedly, he has kind of fallen off, but I still use him, and I think he is still a capable character of running even on Acheron's team now. Pela, really good. Fugue has a strong case of being on her team now, especially in place of Black Swan. When running like the duo here with Jiaochu, like Fugue and Jiaochu may just end up being a better pair than Jiaochu and Black Swan. Since this is just more dot focus shenanigans. And Black Swan honestly doesn't do too much for Acheron besides just helping her stacks. Like, you'd be better off probably even running Gwyneth over Black Swan in terms of the efficiency, especially since Jiaochu is Gwyneth's direct upgrade. And because of that, he's also her direct buff because Jiaochu's Lycon is the best Lycon for Gwyneth to use. So, with that being said, we have our options for nihility. So even with Jiaochu, you can get away with him being the only nihility character on Acheron's team, and you're pretty much golden. Like, this ability isn't as restrictive as you think, and as people will kind of try to say. And then the E2 just let you get away with that even more because one character will give her the 2 character effect, but most importantly, the E2 effect is her getting stacks on her turn at the start of her turn. So her stack potency increases by 1. Like, in my opinion, E2 has always been the most important ability for her dupe wise because of that. So let's say you don't have Acheron. What do? I would say you can still get away with pulling for Acheron, right? And she's fine at E0. I know a lot of people with her at E0, they dominate with her at E0. She's extremely powerful at E0. Don't think you need to rush to E2 her. So if you just pull 1 copy of her, have her at E0, you're good. If you do have Acheron, then it might, you might be incentivized to try getting her to E2 if you can. If you have her at E1, I would definitely recommend trying to get her to E2 because E2 is the sweet spot. You get her to E2, you're pretty much golden, right? But what if I have her at E2? See, this is where it gets complicated, right? Because Acheron is really good by herself, right? But the complication is Lycone. Now, I've always been of the opinion, and I've stated before in numerous videos, even videos before my YouTube account got nuked, that light cones are actually one of the truest forms of power creep in this game. Light cones can easily make or break a character, right? And we've seen various examples of that, like Sele, through Jingliu, characters with these light cones that are tailor made for them, pretty much. And like even the second best is like far worse by comparison, right? But with Acheron, it's really bad. It's really bad because outside of her light cone, like patience is all you need would be like the second best 5-star light cone to put on her. But even then, like, because we're only using it for this, and then we have the erode, which gives her some dot potency. The problem is she doesn't care for that. Now let's look at what her light cone does, right? Increases crit damage by 36%. When the wearer hits an enemy target, inflict Mirage Fizzle on an enemy lasting for 1 turn. Each time the wearer attacks, this effect can only trigger 1 time on each target. Keep in mind, Acheron has blast and AoE, so she's inflicting Mirage Fizzle on like everything she hits. The wearer deals 24% increased damage to targets inflicted with Mirage Fizzle, and the damage dealt by ultimate additionally increases by 20%. Now, this is a lot for a Nihility light cone, because compared to like every other Nihility light cone in the game. Every other Nihility light cone typically focuses on debuffs, dots, but like nothing like truly offensive like this. This is like the truest offensive Nihility light cone in the game. And this is part of what makes Acheron extremely powerful. Like without this, there's massive fall off in her performance. But it doesn't stop her for being a top DPS. But there is a difference between Acheron with this light cone and an Acheron without this light cone. There's a massive difference. So what do we do in these cases here? And this is what complicates her rerun, because people are going to be looking at pulling Acheron when you should be looking to pull the light cone. The light cone is what's really, because let's look at what this light cone does at S5. At S5, the crit damage goes from 36% to 60%, and the 24% modifiers go up to 40% modifiers. Like this light cone at S5, keep in mind I have this light cone at S5. Like this light cone right here is why Acheron can put out millions, like 1 million plus damage on ult, even against a single target enemy. This is the reason why. This light cone at S5. And building her isn't terribly difficult. Pioneer is extremely good on her. Scholar, actually, I'm thinking might be better on her than Pioneer. I haven't been able to get a full set of this to test, but on paper, it sounds better. Because we basically have this is equivalent to like an ornament effect being put into a relic. It's like we got skill and ultimate damage dealt by skill and ultimate increase. After using ultimate, increase the damage dealt by net skill by 25%, right? So it's a passive increase to E and ult, and then after using ult, E gets the next use of E gets stronger, right? Whereas we use this to sort of bolster our crit stats and deal just a bit more crit damage, and we get this crit rate boost here. But the thing is, Acheron already is giving herself crit rate increase when she's dealing damage to debuffed enemies. So you can take like her current crit rate and increase it by 18%, and Well, boom, there you go. In terms of ornaments, it really depends. If you're not running her at E4 or even E6, Izumo might be is Izumo and Cell Soto are like marginal, but you can make a case that Izumo kind of edges out. But if she's E6, Cell Soto just runs away with it. Um, it's just no contest. Um, but this is all pretty much straightforward. Now I will say though, if you get her crit rate pretty good in terms of substats, you can change this to crit damage. It attacks you. You can run attacker speed. This definitely goes to attack and give her like damage boost. Like basically, you just want to give her as much attack as possible. The shoe could be attacker speed. I'm running attack on mine. Good night, sleep well. Like I don't. This is a good light cone to put on her, but still, like, because she can get up to like a 72% damage boost from this, but like that's still it's still way worse than this. Even at S1, it's way worse. Uh, this is where Acheron's rerun becomes complicated because people are going to talk about pulling on her, but people aren't going to talk about the light cone. They're not going to talk about the light cone. The light cone is what dishes out a bunch of the damage. So what do you do at that point? If you have Acheron, right? If you don't have the light cone, I would say skip pulling Acheron, pull her light cone, at least one copy, right? If you have Acheron, if you have her light cone, this is where things kind of branch out too. If she's not E2, then I would say get Acheron. I would say maybe try to pull Acheron to E2. If you have Acheron at E2, it should just be getting dupes of this light cone. This light cone is too powerful. Like if you want to see all those big numbers with Acheron, you need to get this. You need to get this light cone and get as many dupes of it in there as possible. And consider also that it's easier to pull light cones than it is to pull characters in this game. So you have a better coin flip, and even if you lose the coin flip, it's okay. You have a much higher chance of winning the coin flip, but I would still rather be pulling for the light cone because at this point, you're pulling Acheron against getting like Himiko, Welt, Bronya, Japar, Clara, Yanqing, or Bailu, and like you some of these characters you just do not want right now. Like Himiko's still strong. She got buffed for Jade. Jade buffed her. Acheron buffed Welt. Sunday's buffing Bronya. Japar's kind of fallen off a bit. But he's still a decent preservation character. Clara got buffed by Yunli. Yanqing is whatever. Bailu, you just don't want. But I would rather risk pulling against one of these 5-star light cones. I would rather pull against one of these 5-star light cones than pulling against one of the standard characters. Now, unless you pull like these two, or rather if you pull this, that's just rip. But I mean, you can still use this, but you pull this, that's just rip. So I mean, there's downsides to going for either, but there's more value in pulling this Lycon, in my opinion. Like you should really be pulling this Lycon. But I just can't stress that. Do not rush to pull Acheron. If you have Acheron, if you want to gear to E2, cool. Like that's the smart play. Like if you have the pulls to spare, to try to pull her to E2, that's fine. Especially if she's E1, I would strongly encourage it. And then, if you have any left, maybe consider pulling her light cone if you have it. If you don't have it, if you do have the light cone, you can just stop. But I feel like if you're going to focus anything on this rerun, it has to be the Lycone. It has to be the Lycone. It has to be Lycone. The Lycone's where all the damage comes out. And if you get it to S5, like even E0 Acheron is going to be the strongest character in your box. There's no contest. And this Lycone buffs a number of characters too. This Welt is really good with it. Pela is really good with it as a sub DPS. I've used it across both of them. Silverwolf. Silverwolf's pretty decent with it, but like in order to really capitalize on Silverwolf's DPS, you kind of need dupes in her. Otherwise, she's just there. She's just kind of there as a debuffer. Don't put it on. Don't put it on Kafka, please. Although you could. There's a reason patience is all you need is like one of the more busted nihility Lycones in the game because it makes Kafka one of the best DPS characters in the game. One of the fastest too, which is crazy. But like everyone else, nah. But like for like Welt, Palo, or Silverwolf, Acheron's Lycone can be used on them. And even their builds would be similar, like running Pioneer or even now the newly released Scholar, with either Izumo or Inert Salsodo, especially for Welt. And if you have Welt with some dupes in him, it just becomes even more valuable. Because Welt is one of the few characters, especially in the standard pool, who is capable of lasting longer than like every other character in there. Because the more dupes you get in him, the more insane he becomes. But yeah, definitely, I would definitely recommend you be very careful for this rerun. I mean, Adventuring is coming with her too, but you know, people are going to make like Adventuring's not as critical of a banner decision as Acheron is. Because I feel like even coming into the second anniversary, Acheron's not going to fall off. I have consistently zero cycled Memory of Chaos with Acheron. No matter how they try to set it up, her half, whoever half I put her on, she will always zero cycle. And hell, you can even do synergies with her in Purification. Like Acheron all around is just a very powerful character. Like they made her busted like this on purpose. Like you might see other content creators like even so like Global Certified, someone who like I value a lot for their insight. Like they would say that this Lycone is just really too good, which is one of the inherent flaws of Acheron because she needs this Lycone and everything else is like way worse by comparison, even if it's a good Lycone. And it's like, yeah, you know, that's true, but they did this on purpose. They made Acheron busted on purpose because they knew people were going to pull for her. She's right in May. Like anyone who is coming from Honkai Impact is strongly attached to the Raiden May character. And they was like, we're going to put Raiden May in Honkai Star Rail. They knew people were going to pull for her. And they spared no expense in making her extremely powerful and a top DPS character in the game. But because of that, the Lycone had to be just as busted. The Lycone had to be just as powerful as her. Like this had to be the best offensive nihility Lycone in the game. This had to be. It had to be this way. Because she's the best nihility DPS. And an uncontested DPS overall. Like the only DPS units who come who come rather close are like Firefly and Fei Xiao, but in different ways. Because Firefly sucks until enemies start getting broken, and Fei Xiao is only as good as the team you can make for her. Like her, and also if she's E2 or not. Like there's a stark difference between non E2 Fei Xiao and E2 Fei Xiao. But like the only difference with her and between her and those two is like they can get away with not using their signature light cones. Acheron needs her signature to perform the way she's intended to perform. Like, so if you did pull her on first run and you missed the light cone, get the light cone now. If you pulled her and you have the light cone, either consider pulling her to E2 and stopping. Like, unless you got the whale cash like that to pull her to E6 and make her the best character in the game, then sure. Like, maybe you pulled her to E4 when she came out. You know, if you want to throw that, if you want to throw them two pulls out there for the E6, then do your thing, make your money. But I would say, because the most safe and player-friendly the most player-friendly advice I can give is just focus on the light cone. Because this gains immense value for every dupe you put into it. So, but when you go from S1 to S5, like you just produced a monster. But like that's pretty much that. Like this, I would say don't make a mistake and get enticed into pulling Acheron if you can afford not to, or if you already have her, if you have her E2. Just like, if you want to do anything for Acheron, get her light cone and dupe it, because that will give your Acheron more lasting power. An E2 Acheron and S5 light cone is perfect. I mean, obviously E6 is even more perfect, but E2 Acheron plus S whatever light cone above S1, it is just extremely good. Like this, like, and even if you don't use this on her, you can use it on like other nihility characters, on the other nihility characters we talked about. But yeah, I really want to make this video because her rerun is coming next week, and I know there are going to be people talking about it. And I already see people on Twitter asking me about like pulling Acheron on rerun banner. Acheron is really powerful, which is why her rerun is really complicated, because it had to happen at some point. Like, she, Adventuring, are the only characters that like pre-Firefly release we haven't gotten. We've gotten everyone else up to this point. Like, did we get the Boot Hill rerun yet? I don't remember. But yeah, like, her rerun had to come eventually. And this is a pretty decent time to for the rerun, because they're only releasing it because Rappa's the only new 5-star character that came out. Which is probably why they waited until Rappa's release to do Acheron's rerun. I mean, it could have been any character. I mean, they were obviously planning to do a one character release this patch. So no. And Rappa's really good. You don't need her, but she's really good. So like skipping her for Acheron or even Adventuring is still a valid decision, and you don't really miss much. But yeah, like I said, at this point, it's definitely getting into broken record syndrome. Just get the light cone. Just get the light cone. Make your Acheron even more powerful. Tell me, how do you guys feel about Acheron's rerun? And like, are you going to get her if you don't have her? Are you going to pull for her? Would you consider duping her to E2, or are you going to get her light cone? Maybe you don't have it. Or do you just plan on skipping because 2.7 is coming and Sunday and Fugway are just extremely busted? But either way, go ahead and just like let me know, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace out.